For everything, they need to do a march for the seniors. They need to do a march, like the Million Man March and all of them. Maybe from 116th Street to the Harlem State Building or something like that. We need to do a march for the seniors.
Okay, well, I'm going to take your name and I have to then bring it in my part.
Okay, folks, I think we're going to get started.
Give me 10 minutes again.
Okay.
So what do you have that now?
No, we're starting late.
Up it's at 3. You got to 3.
We got to 3.
Oh,
That's not
Yeah.
10 minutes.
Okay, guys, we're going to get started because we got a lot of information and not that much time.
I don't know what you think about me since that bake sale.
Let me introduce myself. My name is Ted Finkelstein. I'm the Director of Disability Access for the City of New York, the New York City Human Rights Commission. And I'll let Mr.
My
Bianchi
name is
introduce
Bruno
himself.
Bianchi. I'm an attorney in private practice, and I've represented many tenants and owners and shareholders and co-ops and nonprofits and assisted living facilities. I've represented just about everybody on every side of a discrimination complaint over the years.
And you charge.
Yes.
He charges.
Okay.
I don't charge, I'm the city, but I'm not an attorney.
But I'm just here for informational purposes.
Okay, all right.
So I'm going to do about a 10-15-minute presentation. We can throw it open to your questions. I hope anything I talk about is of interest to you. Again, I said I work for the New York City Human Rights Commission. Anybody ever hear of it?
Yes.
Okay. Our job is to protect New Yorkers from being discriminated against. We, in fact, are a law enforcement agency. And the law that we work with is the New York City Human Rights Law. And essentially what it says it's illegal to discriminate in New York City in 3 areas. You guys help me out. What's the first area you can't discriminate against people?
Race?
No, those are the people you can't. You can't discriminate against in employment, where you work. You can't discriminate against, where else?
Tenant.
Housing, where you live. And you can't discriminate against people in what's called public accommodations. A public accommodation is anywhere you want to go. Drugstore, doctor's office, bowling alley, baseball stadium, anywhere you want to go that's open to the public, you have a right. You said race before. We have the largest group of protected classes in America at the New York City Human Rights Commission. We don't make up the rules. They're given to us by City Council. Every day they get changed and added on. Just yesterday, a bill just got passed to protect people from discrimination in employment. Right now, the group that we protect are people with their arrest and conviction records. That was just added on that now it's called ban the box. There cannot be a box on your application that says, have you ever been arrested or convicted? We're waiting for the mayor's signature on that. We just added a group about 2 months ago when it comes to employment. You can't discriminate against people if they've been unemployed for a while. You used to see it on Craigslist. There's a job open and it might say long-term unemployed, don't apply. That is now illegal in New York. We keep on adding. I'm going to give a real brief discussion of who we protect. We have a phrase called grand scram. So the G would be you can't discriminate against people based on gender. The R, you guys help me out. You can't discriminate against people based on race. Yeah. And when I said gender, by the way, that also was just changed in the last few months. You can't discriminate against people based on not only the gender they are, but the gender they perceive themselves to be. We've been reading a lot about transgender lately. And that would mean that was based on a case we had where a gentleman that had not had the surgery yet wanted to use a woman's room in Grand Central Station. They denied him. They sued. They won. And then the law was signed in the city council. So you can't discriminate against. So it's gender, gender identity, race. Give me for the A.
Age.
Age. You can't discriminate based on age. N. Nationality. You guys are good. D, which is what I'm here primarily to talk about. Disability. That's what I'm going to be speaking about primarily. Now S. We got an S for scram. S would be sexual orientation. You can't discriminate based on sexual orientation. C. Color of your skin. R. Religion. A. This is the one that gets groups. Most groups don't get it, but I got an attorney. He's going to get it. You can't discriminate against people based on the letter A. What do you think it is? Give me a guess. It's in the news all the time. Come on, you're an attorney. You got to get this one.
Age.
Not age, rather age. No, it's alienage. Based on, and whether you're legal, I'd hate this phrase, illegal or illegal alien, but whether you're legal or not. Let me explain a little further. When it comes to a job, They have a right to ask for your green cards or your social security card. So it's not discrimination if they turn you down. But you can't discriminate in housing when someone that's quote unquote an immigrant that doesn't have, might not be legal, the landlord can't say, let me see your papers. It's totally illegal. And you're protected in that regard. Well, I'm just going to get to that. The last one is M, marital status. You don't see this so much in Manhattan, but in Queens and Brooklyn, you see ads, apartment for rent. Couples only. No children. By the way, that's out also. There are limits how many people you can have in, but a landlord, and New York City law is it's so advanced, it covers all housing, even a two-family house where the owner lives in it. As long as it's publicly advertised. Let me explain what that means. I have a two-family house. I don't want Spanish people in there. This is just a story. It's not true. I don't want Latinos in my building. If I don't publicly advertise that apartment, if I just tell them, I get an apartment for rent, I don't want Latinos. In fact, I can discriminate. But once I put a sign in my window that says apartment for rent, or I put a sign in the grocery store that says apartment for rent, I can't discriminate. Co-ops, condos, rentals, you can't discriminate. He mentioned source of income. That was one of our newest ones. It used to be that landlords could say, I don't want Section 8, or I no longer want you because you're on Section 8. The City Council passed a law about 5 years ago. We have more cases on that than any other issue of discrimination in New York. Less so now because the landlords have learned. But now they cheat also. You look on Craigslist, apartment for rent, no programs. You tell us about that, we will sue like that. We'll get $5,000 for the city and the civil penalties, and we'll also get you the apartment. So let us know whenever you see discrimination. So source of income is a big one. That's Social Security, SSI, Section 8, public assistance. Landlords can't discriminate. We have a million other groups, and I actually have a sheet of paper with all of them listed. I'll hand it out when I leave. It's a little different in housing, public accommodations, and housing, and employment. But I'm just here to talk about housing, and I'm here primarily to talk about disabled people and the rights. New York City is a very non-disabled friendly city in many areas. Obviously, you walk down any street, see every store has a step in front of it. To you, you just walk over it. But for somebody in a wheelchair or a cane or a walker, that one step is the same as Mount Everest. You're not getting in with an electric scooter into a store. There are tens of thousands of those. And in apartments, we did a study, there are about 2 million apartment units in New York City that are inaccessible. It could either be because it's a 6-story walk-up, or it's a building with one step out front. And again, one step out front is Mount Everest to someone in a scooter or an electric wheelchair, even a manual wheelchair. So 2 million units, figure 2 to 3 people on average live in apartments. You're probably talking about 5 million people live in housing in New York City that's inaccessible. And even though it's years after the ADA, does everyone know what the ADA is? Americans with Disabilities Act, which really has nothing to do with housing, so we just throw that out. Housing has been protected under federal fair housing laws. What they essentially, federal law says, any new building is supposed to be accessible. It's not true, they're not. But anything old is supposed to be, it's the landlord's responsibility, it's the owner's responsibility to say you could provide your own access. That's the federal law. Owners don't have to pay for anything. In New York City, that's all changed. And only New York City and parts of New York State. Tenants have a right to ask their landlord to make the building accessible. When I say accessible, it could be anything. Ramp out front, an electronic door because the doors are too heavy. The laundry room has a step going into it. Anything in your building that makes you not able to enjoy your building as much as somebody without a disability. And even if I see here most people have the ability to walk here. You got to realize people in New York City's become, like we call it, a naturally occurring retirement community, a norm. Used to be people would you'd leave your building and move from a 3-bedroom to a 1-bedroom in a different building, or you'd leave your building and go to Florida, or you'd leave your building and go somewhere else. People don't do that anymore. We die in place. Because we can't afford to move. You take a 3-bedroom apartment if it was rent stabilized, you can't even afford to move into a studio somewhere else, even though you may want something smaller. So it's a retirement community, which means that people are living in their buildings and they're becoming disabled, as we tend to do. Not me, and not you guys, but we wish. But it's becoming more and more we're becoming more and more disabled, the buildings are less and less disability friendly. What the landlord has to do, well, I'll even make it simply. A typical call I get every day is I'll get a call from a Mrs. Jones. She'll say, Mr. Finkelstein, I'm disabled and I can't get in and out of my building. There are 2 steps. I asked the landlord. The landlord said, this is no senior citizen home. Move out. Is that right? I said, no, it's not right. You have a right to what's called reasonable accommodation. That means the owner has to make your building accessible unless it would cause an undue hardship. And what's an undue hardship? What do you think? Money. If he cannot afford it, and I have not seen a landlord that cannot afford it, even in Till buildings I've been working with as well. Most landlords could make your building accessible. It's not an undue hardship. It has to be 2 things. It has to be affordable, which it is to most landlords, 99% in New York City, and technically feasible. When I say technically feasible, what does that mean? That means that it has to be possible to build a ramp. And I'll give you an example. Sometimes in New York City, you open a door to a building, and you might see 4 steps in the vestibule, and it's only about 6 or 7 feet. You can't build a ramp. One number you should all remember if you leave here. For every 1 inch a step goes up, the ramp has to go out a foot. So if you have 2 steps, and you have 16 inches a step, you need 16 feet of ramp. That's not always available. If that's not available, then we ask them to put a lift in the building. If that's not available, I'll go out to every building and see what the person needs, and I'll help design something for the landlord to do. And if they won't do it, we'll sue. So here's the case. Mrs. Jones calls me up. She said they just had a double knee replacement and a hip replacement last year. I can no longer get in and out of my building because of the steps. Do I have a right? I say, yes, you do. I call the landlord, and I say, Mr. Rich Landlord. That's his name. I don't know why it's his name, Mr. Rich Landlord. I said, Rich. I said, I got a disabled tenant in the building, Mrs. Jones. Said she can't get out of the building because of 2 steps. She uses a manual wheelchair. She can't get in and out. First thing almost any owner will tell me, Mrs. Jones, she moved into this building where she was able-bodied. I'm not a hospital. Why should I be responsible for her? Tell her to go to an old age or assisted living or move in with a daughter who lives 5 blocks away. I known her since she was a kid. Why am I responsible? And I said, because the law requires that you are responsible. Doesn't matter if somebody moved into your building disabled or able-bodied. If they get disabled, it's your responsibility. Then many landlords will say, but I know this woman. I actually have a video camera in the building, and I saw her get out of the wheelchair last month, stand up, pick up a granddaughter, and hold her. You're not going to believe how often I get this. Look, we all have good days and bad days. People with disabilities and without their days. I had a hip replacement for a few years. I had trouble moving. Now I'm back on the tennis court. But it was difficult. So people with disabilities have good days and bad days. And that Mrs. Jones, that day, could pick up her granddaughter. Some other day, she can't even get out of bed. So it's not his business. All we need is a letter from a doctor that said Mrs. Jones has a mobility impairment. It's not the landlord's right to know if she has cancer, whether she has HIV, whether she has MS. She just has to know that she has a mobility impairment. And he's entitled to that information. So he might say, I say to him, forget it. Whether she was disabled or not, whether she has a good day or bad day, you got to do it. Then he'll say, I'm grandfathered in. This building is here from 1922, well before the laws were passed. So I'm grandfathered in. What I always tell him at that point is, I don't care if your grandfather owned the building. You're not grandfathered in. You can't be grandfathered in on a civil rights law. That would be like a restaurant owner in the South saying, well, I never let black people into the building before. Why do I have to do it now? Because you can't be grandfathered in for discriminatory behavior. At that point, they get really mad at me. They don't like to be called discriminators. And they hang up on me, and I get a call back about 10 minutes later. And again, this happens all the time. And they start yelling at me. They said, Mr. Finkelstein, we just called the buildings department. Even though you work for the city and they work for the city, they checked my building, and they told me I do not have to build a ramp in there because I am in fact grandfathered in. What I have to explain to them at that point is building codes can be grandfathered in. Human rights cannot be. So even though the buildings department says you don't have to do it, I'm telling you, you do have to do it. And in fact, they do have to do it. Again, there are only 2 things they often say, well, my building's beautiful and I don't want it to look like an old age home. Well, it's an old Art Deco building. If I have to put in a ramp, it's going to ruin the way the building looks. Again, that's irrelevant. They have to do it. Only 2 things, even if the building is a landmark, they have to do it.
Excuse me, Mayor.
Listen,
I have to leave.
Oh, you wanna go?
I participate in another program, but
Okay.
I just want to say I wholeheartedly agree with everything Ted just told you.
You gonna come back and answer some questions? You're gonna want to talk to an
Yes.
attorney. He's just running over. I'm gonna go on for a while because you can say I can talk. But I'm gonna throw it. He's
He's
gonna
the
come
pro.
back. This I do every day. My job is to make New York City accessible. So back to this lady, even if the building is a landmark, and to be honest, there's a lot of buildings in Harlem that are a landmark. Matter of fact, I had a case where there was a building on 145th and St. Nick, and not the greatest building and not the safest part of town. That street is landmarked, and I got a landlord that had to build a ramp, and the landmark said no. I had to work with the Landmarks Commission to give them permission, because that whole area is considered a landmark. So the landlord has to do it. And my job is to get him to do it, and I succeed in about 90% of the cases. Again, ramps. We had a case up in Co-op City, which, everyone familiar with Co-op City? A gentleman had cerebral palsy, and as he got older, he lost, his hands got more and more contorted, and he couldn't open the door to the building. So he asked the building to put in an electronic door. They came back to me and said, we can't do it, we have 70 buildings, we can afford maybe to do it in this one building, but we can't afford to do it in all the buildings. I said, well, I'm not asking for all the buildings. These kind of complaints are individually based. I'm not the ADA police. I don't walk up and down and give violations. If somebody calls me, I get them what they need, or what the law requires them to have. So they said, we're not going to do it. And we said, you got to do it. And then at one point said, what about if we do the side entrance? We'll put an electronic door there. The less kids go in there, it won't get damaged as much. I said, no, we want it to be equal. Well, they said, we're not doing it. The day before trial, and we go to trial almost never. I resolve about 95% of these cases. But in this case, they put in the door, but not in the main door. They did it in the service entrance. And you know what? I said, it's close enough. The guy with disability said, no way. Why should I be treated different than an able-bodied person? Why do I have to go 30 feet down and open it with everybody else? Plus, they don't have a video camera there and the security issues. I want to go in the front. Just because I'm disabled doesn't mean that I'm different. I said, I don't know if you're going to win the case. We went to trial. We actually lost. The judge said what they offered was reasonable enough. They won't go through the legal stuff, but we actually overturned that decision. And it was appealed and went to the highest court. And what the judge essentially said is, to treat somebody differently, making them go through a side entrance, because a lot of landlords want you to go into their dirty basements. And they said it's like making an African American sit in the back of the bus in the 1950s. They get to the same place, but it's not being treated equal. So we won that case. We got about $50,000 in judgment. We got the city some money in civil penalties, and we were very victorious. And that case said people with disabilities have the right to have equal treatment. And that's essentially what we do. My job is to get the city accessible. And if you're not disabled, or I ensure every building that you guys live in, whether it's if it's not accessible, there's somebody in your building either in a wheelchair, somebody with a walker, somebody that's sort of trapped in their building. And you got to let me know about it, and I'll work on the landlord. And I resolve them without filing complaints unless a complaint comes. And I'll open up the questions in a second. It's also not just getting in and out of the building. What about you're in an apartment and you no longer could lift your legs up to get into the bathtub? See that happen to a lot of 70 and 80-year-olds. They don't have the ability. It's the landlord's responsibility. This is in a rental, by the way, not in a co-op or a condo. They're going to have to replace that bathtub with what we call a roll-in shower, something they can just roll into. Or if that's not doable, sometimes there's plumbing issues. What about if they have the bathtub is this high? What if they just cut out a little segment, leave a little part on the bottom so the water doesn't spill out? And the person could just roll in, maybe get into a chair, and be able to lift their legs, or their aide could do it. Or what if they're a small person? As you get old, people get a little smaller. I used to be 6'8". No, I'm joking. I'm also a bad comedian. So what if people get old and they can no longer see through the peephole? I've had a million cases like this. The peephole's here, and they're down here. Well, what, are you going to put a stool there? No. Let the owner lower the peephole. What if the kitchen cabinets are too high? What if the door to the bathroom is too narrow and you can't get your wheelchair in? I'm dealing with a case like that right now up in the Bronx. They're going to have to widen the door. Again, it's if it's possible. Sometimes there's electricity going through there, or sometimes there's plumbing. You can't do what you can't do. These are old buildings.
Right.
But I'm really good at resolving it. these type of issues. Where the real problems lie is, say you've been living in a building like a 5-story walk-up and you're at the 5th floor, you were fine, all of a sudden your legs go under, you get sick. Well, the landlord...
The building is 140 West 142nd.
142nd between Lennox and what?
Lennox and 7th Avenue, or either Adams and Powell Boulevard.
You know what, I may take a drive by it just myself, and I will follow up the call, but it should be from a constituent. So you call the DOT
Right.
and the mayor's
Oh, we
office.
have a service coordinator. We've already asked the service coordinator and the manager.
No, but that's in the building. It's a city issue. If it's a city street, which it clearly sounds like, it's the city's responsibility to put the sign. If I was the city, I would say
Well, not
no.
the sign. It's the yellow. It's a
Yeah, the yellow is fine, but the yellow doesn't really mean anything legally. It's got to be a sign that says no standing any time.
Both. Yeah.
And then they can paint. You could go out there with a can of paint, but that doesn't. You're not going to do that. But that doesn't mean it's legal or illegal.
All right, and can I do one more thing?
Go ahead,
Churches.
What?
There are some churches that you go to that do not have that ramp or something for you.
Okay, I'm going to answer that. Religious institutions are exempt. Except, so that's interesting. In New York City, no one's allowed to discriminate unless you're a church. Take from that what you mean. A church, a synagogue, the mosque, any place that's... But here's the catch, and here's where we get them. If you want to get them. I mean, we understand a lot of these churches don't have the money. Synagogues don't have the money. If the church does something else, if you go there and you just want to go to church on a Sunday morning or a Sunday afternoon, whenever you would go, they do not have to comply with the human rights laws. But if the church does something else, bingo on Wednesdays, food pantry on Tuesdays, they do another, there's some, like the Ethical Culture Society of New York, which is considered a religious institution, they have concerts. If they do anything of a non-religious nature, then they in fact have to comply with the city human rights law. They would have to put in a ramp. Again, if they have money.
Churches
claim they don't.
that they could not do it.
That's
I've
not true.
actually asked.
No, that's a lie.
I've actually asked for something.
They've lied
They
to
had
you.
to carry me when I was in a wheelchair. They had to carry me up the stairs.
Yeah, no, there. But again, is there anything else that goes on in that church besides religious functions? If it's just religion, they do not have to comply with the law. Throw it around, yes.
Oh, hi. Which borough are you in? It doesn't matter.
I do the whole city.
You do the whole
I
city.
have a few staff here that do Staten Island for me because I'm averaging about 500 cases a year. Obviously,
Okay.
but here's what I normally do when I get a case. Somebody calls, I can't get in and out of the building, or the elevator's broken, or this. We get this all the time. The elevators are being renovated, and how am I going to get out for the next 3 months? Because that's how long it takes to renovate some of these elevators. We make the landlords put people up in a hotel, or give them a rent abatement, or move them to another building they own temporarily. Again, I try to resolve every issue that's disability related. I don't always succeed, but I'm pretty successful in getting it done. So, just to go back with your question.
All right. Well, anyway, my question is, I'm a partner, honey. I have a program. I have disability. And I went to several places and I was told they don't take programs, right?
If that happens, immediately call 311 and ask to come down you have to get an appointment to come down. You'll file a complaint. We will sue. We will win. I guarantee. We've never lost a case on that.
Okay.
And if you see anything in writing on Craigslist or on an ad, you copy that right away and bring it down to our agency.
Okay, all right. And also they make the issue that, well, you need, even though the rent is like $1,100 a month, which, the subsidy will cover, well, you don't make enough money. You have to have an income of $45,000 a year.
Well, that's interesting. They're allowed, landlords are allowed to, obviously, their standards. And they have a right to, obviously, if you say you're just getting a Social Security and you only bring home $1,000 a month, and the rent is $5,000 or whatever it is, they can say no to you. So they have percentages. But if you feel like you can afford the rent and they're discriminating against you because you're in a program, there's no human rights law that protects them. This is going to sound bad. No human rights law protecting poor people. Of all that group that I gave you at the beginning, poor people are not included. They can discriminate against poor people. They do all the time.
Yes.
But you can't discriminate if they're taking a program. They can't discriminate based on the color of your skin,
Right.
but they can discriminate against you if they don't feel that you could pay the rent. Now, if you feel like they're saying that you're not making enough money as a pretext, meaning
Yes.
that may in fact be true, come down to us and file.
Okay.
We have a new commissioner, by the way. We've lived for 20 years under Giuliani and Bloomberg.
Yeah.
We didn't really care about human rights. So I was able to fake my way through these 20 years. I worked for the commission for 35 years.
Okay.
But I got a personnel under de Blasio who is great, who will fight for everybody in this room. And I guarantee you, we're a whole new ballgame. We're a very solid agency right now.
Okay, I guess that should have been my question. You're with the city, not the state.
I don't want to badmouth the state. They're right up here in the building. But their
Gotcha.
law is different. No, it's not that they're bad. It's their law is bad. Example, if you live in a building and you go to the state and say, I can't get into my bathtub, or I can't get into my bathroom because the doors are too narrow, the state would say, sorry, you're out of luck. Their law does not cover it. The city law does. We're no better than those guys. I know all the guys that work for the state. They're wonderful folks. They work hard, but their law stinks. It just stinks. Our law is good. State used to be better than us in terms of how they enforce it. Right now, I think we're solider than them because we got a new commissioner and they work for Cuomo.
Oh, okay. And the second part to the question is, the credit score. Oh, they say you have to have like a credit score of 650. Can they discriminate against a person because of that? Or if you've been in housing court, can they discriminate against you because of that?
The answer, well, I never have short answers.
Okay.
A bill just passed in the
That's right.
city
Talk to
council
me.
now
Yeah.
in terms of job. It used to be if you were going for a job, take away for
Yes.
housing, and you have a bad credit history. Look, this is New York, we're all broke, we all have bad credit history. That's a whole other story. But if you had a bad credit history, they say, I don't want to hire you for this job because I don't like the type of person that falls into debt. 2 months ago, this new mayor, who really does care about people, I think, passed a law that says you cannot discriminate in the employment context if you have bad credit history. That just passed. We have not been able to get that passed in housing, though. So the answer is yes, they can discriminate against you based on your credit history.
Okay. With identity theft, though. That's a
Well,
different
no,
story.
there's no, what I'm saying is there's no law that protects you for that.
Gotcha.
Again, unless they're using that as a pretext to keep out blacks or Latinos
Yeah.
or that, and that's a fine line to.
Yeah.
You gotta realize, we're a legal agency, we
Right.
wanna win these cases.
Right.
We're not gonna take a case if we don't have the law backing us up.
Okay, and the same thing goes if they says to use a pretext of, well, if you've had housing court issues. I mean, you could have took the landlord to court, you know?
Yeah, but this is a big issue, and again, Cuomo's been terrible on it. We've been trying to pass laws to protect people that, landlords, do a credit check on all of us. They hold housing court against us.
Yes.
There's a reason maybe we didn't pay our rent because we had no heat and no water for 3 months.
Right.
And the elevator's been down, and I got vermin. I'm doing the right thing by not paying the rent. By
Right.
paying the rent is the wrong thing. But
Right,
the
you got an
landlords
abatement
hold
too.
it against us.
Okay,
So, and it is more difficult.
thank you.
I want to ask 2 questions. First of all, I came in late, so I need to get your name. Well, I see your
I'm gonna
name.
give everybody my name, and I'm gonna, before I leave, I'm gonna give everybody, I ran out of cards because I came from another training. I'm gonna give everybody my personal number also from my office, so if you have a disability-related case. My name is Ted Finkelstein. And, I can give it to you on these guys. Everyone should get this card. It talks about equal access, a little bit what I was talking about.
Oh, okay.
And what's the agency?
And the agency is the New York City Commission on Human Rights.
Okay, so
And my direct number is 718-579-6896. 718-579-6896. There's no charge for any of our services. So if you bring a case to me and for some reason I fail in getting it resolved, which happens, I'm not Superman, then we turn you over to our law enforcement bureau and you will get an attorney for free. Now, we're not landlord-tenant attorneys, meaning
Right.
we don't, if you're being evicted for something, we don't represent you in housing court. But if you're being discriminated against, we will. I also deal with a lot of seniors, and a lot of seniors are afraid. I had a senior on Riverside on 145th. She unfortunately lost 2 legs due to diabetes, and the landlord, there was 5 steps in front. She sued. The landlord was a really bad guy. The day of her hearing, he shut off the elevator, so she couldn't even get down from the 4th floor. So her husband would have been able to carry her down. But the judge had we did it over the phone, and she ended up winning, and they had to build a ramp. but to try to retaliate against her. And I know a lot of seniors and a lot of older and disabled people are afraid to complain, oh, the landlord's going to come after me.
Yeah.
I've been doing this for 35 years. This is the only time I've ever seen it actually did happen. They came after the woman. They tried to throw her off rent control. She was very elderly, in her mid-80s at that point. We fined $25,000. Landlord, and my name is really well known with the landlord community. They know not to mess with a tenant when I'm involved. Because really, we need a complainant. Like I said earlier, I can't walk by a building and say, oh, there's 3 steps. There must be a disabled person in there. Even though it's probably true. I need somebody to come to me. And a lot of times people say, oh, I'll do it, but I'm afraid to give my name. Well, I'll say, I'll try to resolve it anonymously. But if I say there's somebody in your building with a wheelchair and say there's only 2 of you, he's going to probably know it's you. So, but a lot of people are afraid. I get that every day, a call like that.
Do you come out to senior centers?
I'll come to senior. If you guys, what I was going to say is, I'll come to any group you want to speak to the seniors, to speak to the local elected officials. Like some of the elected officials don't know it. Some attorneys, this guy's an attorney, he's a great guy. He didn't even know half the things in our law. So I'll speak to, and I speak to social workers in hospitals. So you can just give me a call, and I am out speaking about 3 days a week.
So
But when you call me, I'll come to your building. I carry around with me a tape measure. I carry around with me a device that measures how heavy a door is. There are codes on how heavy a door could be. I have a device that measures the slope. I got a call this morning where somebody said, I live in a building. They built a ramp, but it's a little too steep. My mother's afraid she's going to slide down. I went out to the building this morning, and sure enough, it was, code is supposed to be 1 in 12. Remember I said earlier, for every 1 inch, you got to go out a foot?
Yes.
This one, for every 1 inch, it only went out about 6 inches. So it's like a ski slope.
Yeah.
It's like a ski slope. So yeah, I'll come out to the buildings, I'll see exactly what the problem is. I'll come into your apartments, I'll take measurements, do whatever you need me to do.
Can I have your email address as well?
Yeah, sure.
And I'm taking.
I'm gonna give everybody as well. Any other questions though? And I'll answer I'll give you all the information you have.
Okay, I'm sorry. Do you have anything to do with the laws concerning NYCHA?
Well, yes, and I'll tell you, but here's what we have to do with NYCHA. In terms of NYCHA, we actually sued NYCHA years ago because 20 years ago, none of their buildings were accessible. Now that we sued them, they've made most of their buildings accessible. Not all of them. Some of them can't be done. There are, some of the NYCHA buildings, the way it's designed. It's not just NYCHA. I'm dealing in Parkchester up in the Bronx. Many of those buildings are inaccessible and they can't be made. But yes, we will sue NYCHA. We'll try to work with them. I'm actually working with them right now on 117th Street. There are these buildings they're NYCHA buildings, but they look like they're regular apartment buildings.
Yeah, I know,
So they rent them and they lease them out to private management companies. I'm dealing with getting those done. But yes, the answer is yes, we do deal with NYCHA.
Okay, my question is, as you know, they are leasing or selling some of their land that's
Their
not
land,
being
yeah.
used. Okay, they did the parking lot, and so now they lease all the senior citizen building where the department of agents has taken over all of those. And my question is, I've been living in this development since it opened, and I've seen it deteriorated. This particular building, it's a 30-story building, and it used to have benches and grasses and everything around it. Okay, it was a large basketball court playground. We have a senior citizen building, but the only thing is, when they leased this basketball court, they put a large center there, it's almost as large as it's large.
Oh, the community center.
Huh? It's
Okay.
a community center, yes. And we thought it was supposed to be for 3 developments. And the senior citizen community center was supposed to have moved into there and give the smaller one to the children. But now, as it turned out, concerning the discrimination that I'm trying to say is around this particular building, when they built that, they took away our official walkway. It used to be benches. They took down the benches, took away the walkway. I know you know where the Giant used to be at.
Yeah.
This is where this development is at. On the other side, there's another one, Wrangle Houses.
You're talking about Polo Ground House.
Polo Ground. Okay, Wrangle Houses and between Polo Grounds, there's a city street that goes up in there. Okay, the Polo Grounds has a driveway in the back where it used to have cars go down in the back, you know, where tenants can do their groceries but it's like a hill. Now, when they built this large community center, they took away all the official walkways, all the walk-arounds where people would walk wheelchairs, to people with children with strollers and what have you. This driveway, they blocked it. You can't get near the building. The community center has taken away the sidewalk. The only thing we have left is around about 9 or 10 steps. So I've been trying to get the tenants up there to say, seniors with walkers, senior children, you know, they're like the children during the wintertime. They can't go up. They got to meet the school bus in the street.
No, I know what you're saying. It's complicated because we don't have power over the night show.
But and even myself, when I'm coming in with groceries, the cab got to stop in the street in order for to get.
There's no accessible.
No,
way
there's no official accessible for that particular building, and they don't allow cabs on the ground, and not too many ambulances either.
So where do the ambulances drop people off?
Well, as far as I know, sometimes they're on the side of there's a little halfway driveway there. That they come up in the driveway
so is there a
and
security
drop
guard
them
that
off.
stops people from going up?
Excuse me?
Is there security that keeps people from coming in or driving
No, they
in?
just had it blocked off with poles or something.
I mean, that's something that we could possibly, if we have like a complainant with a disability that says they can't get into their building,
We've been trying to get them to make a complaint, and we just can't get them to do it. I mean, you know, like children, like in the snow, a lady almost, she fell here during the wintertime going up the steps trying to get the school bus. But a child was in a walker. She had to go up that ramp and the driveway there, which it wasn't plowed at the time, that time of morning. It snowed with all that snow that we had during the wintertime.
Well, that's going to happen. But what's more concerning to me is the issue that there's no access. You said
No.
there's no accessible way. That's the problem. Let's talk about that. I have no answer. There has to be an accessible route into your building. But then they might move you to another building because they might build
it's a
something.
30-story building. I mean, I'm God thank I'm blessed not to have a walker yet, but I mean, I'm just talking.
So how does a person with a wheelchair get into your building?
Well, what it is they have to go around a long way. It's like a couple of inches like the front, but I'm most specifically talking about the back because there's a supermarket in the back where we go, and a lot of people comes up in the back and drop off their groceries in the back because it's near the building. They not like the cab drivers with grocery stuff. If they're coming in from the front, they got it at least around about 10, 12 feet more to walk before they get to the building.
But it's flat from where.
Yeah.
Yeah, we might not have a case on that because there appears to be an accessible way in. We might not have a very
But not the
strong
back.
case. Yeah. Other questions on it?
Yeah, I just want to ask, because she's asking about NYCHA.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you, so you have nothing to do with HUD stuff?
We do.
You do?
When NYCHA was renovating their elevators years ago, and these elevators are out for 3 months, what we got NYCHA to do, and it's not the best idea, but at least it worked. We got NYCHA to buy these machines that actually a wheelchair would sort of roll back into, and it could actually climb up 17 flights of stairs. It's not a great way to go. It'd take about a half hour to get somebody up to their apartment, but at least seniors and disabled. Nowadays, NYCHA's not even fixing their elevators. I know that. But at least back then they were fixing them, and then when they fix them, it does take a great amount of time. So I'm saying, we would take a complaint against HUD also. If it's a building in New York, if the building is in New York City, we have jurisdiction.
Yeah, my reason, because, well, I live in the building. We have 2 elevators, which is lovely. I know some senior citizen developments only have one, which Chauncey Hooper had one. So when their elevator went out and they were going to repair it, they actually relocated people that, that wanted to go someplace else until the elevators was repaired. But I do remember a case that I saw, and it was several years ago, and it was in the paper. The city council person took it up too because the people they were seniors, and the elevator had been broken for months, and they had to walk up and down the stairs, and then they had fallen, and the city council person came on, and then they took it to the news, and then they made the they paid for it They paid for it and made the building, the manager pay them back. You know, they came in themselves, you know what I'm saying?
You know, we have jurisdiction over everything though, just like
Yeah,
you
right,
know.
you come in and fix it, and then the building, owner has to pay you back.
I'm just curious, does anybody live in a building that is not accepted? Taking a picture of me in the crowd? Just one. Go ahead.
How does one define disability?
Great, that's a phenomenal question, by the way. Under federal law, to be disabled, you have to be limited in a life function. You can't go to the bathroom on your own. You can't walk. You can't talk. To be disabled in New York City, you have to have, and here's the key word, an impairment. Meaning like, something is not perfect. Meaning, and the question is really good because to have to be disabled doesn't mean you can't walk at all. Maybe you can't walk a little. And the imperfection could be either physical or mental. Meaning you have a psychological. I have kids, give you real quick, kids with autism. I had a kid that banged his head against the wall nonstop. So if you're the neighbor next door, he goes, oh, my life is over. I'm getting all this noise all the time. The landlord said, I'm going to throw this guy out. I said, well, you got to make an accommodation. What about if you put a padding over this whole wall, if the kid's knocking his head? And we got the landlord to do it. So yeah, it's psychological or physical, and it's very, very broad. What's this? Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, what are the psychological disabilities?
What their psychological disabilities are? I'll give you one. You have mental illness, say, or you're very depressed, and you need a dog. I didn't even get into dogs, by the way. Yet. Pete? There are 3 kinds of dogs: service animal. I know we got to wrap up. Got 1 more minute, guys. Service animal, or seeing eye dog, or what we call a companion animal. Say your husband or your spouse just died, or your kid is very lonely and he needs this dog. That becomes a service dog. And even though the building has a no dogs allowed policy, we will force the landlord to let you keep that dog because you have a psychological need to have that. That's usually where it takes place with the psychological issue.
What's your email?
Okay, I'm going to give everybody my email, and then I'm going to have to let everybody go. My name is Ted Finkelstein, so my email is tfinkelstein, FINKELSTEIN, at CCHR, that's City Commission Human Rights, CCHR.nyc.gov. And if you just call 311 and you ask for me, you'll get me eventually. So I have some materials here.